In the heart of a city choked by the iron grip of the Phoenix Syndicate, a gang known for their racist ideologies and brutal enforcement of power, there was a beacon of hope in the form of Dr. Elijah Rivers, a black doctor dedicating his life to healing the underserved. If you want to see how Dr. Elijah ends with this dangerous gang, make sure you subscribe and follow till the end of the story. His clinic, a humble establishment nestled between graffiti-laden walls, was a sanctuary for the sick and injured, regardless of their ability to pay. Dr. Rivers possessed a quiet strength, a gentle demeanor that belied a past he rarely spoke of, a past etched in the crucible of war, where he served as a combat medic, a healer on the front lines. But the shadows of the Phoenix Syndicate loomed large, threatening to extinguish the light of his work and drag him back into the violence he sought to escape. If you're intrigued by Dr. Rivers' story and want to see how he navigates this dangerous world, please subscribe and follow for more updates. The days that followed were a delicate dance between healing and survival. Dr. Rivers poured his heart into his practice, treating gunshot wounds from gang skirmishes, tending to the elderly with chronic illnesses, and comforting mothers worried about their children's futures. Each patient was a reminder of why he chose this path, why he traded the battlefield for a clinic, the adrenaline of combat for the quiet satisfaction of mending broken bodies and spirits. Yet, the presence of the Phoenix Syndicate was a constant, unsettling hum. Their veiled threats and subtle acts of intimidation grew bolder. Graffiti with racial slurs appeared on the clinic's walls, and protection demands were slipped under the door. Dr. Rivers tried to ignore it, focusing on his work, but he knew it was only a matter of time before the storm broke. One evening, as he was locking up the clinic, a group of men emerged from the shadows, their faces contorted with hate. They were members of the Phoenix Syndicate, their intentions clear. This time, it wasn't just a threat, it was an outright assault. The first blow came quickly, a fist aimed at Dr. Rivers' face. Years of medical training had ingrained a sense of preservation, but combat had honed his reflexes. He swayed just enough to deflect the punch, the force still stinging his cheek. "We told you to leave, Doc," one of the thugs spat, his voice laced with venom. "This ain't your place." Dr. Rivers, despite the rising adrenaline, tried to reason with them. "I'm just here to help," he said, his voice calm but firm. "This community needs medical care." Their response was a flurry of violence. A second thug lunged, a rusty pipe raised high. Dr. Rivers, no longer able to avoid confrontation, reacted instinctively. His mind raced back to the drills, the training, the countless hours spent honing his body into a weapon of defense. He sidestepped the pipe, grabbed the attacker's wrist, and used his momentum against him, sending him sprawling to the ground. The other gang members surged forward, a chaotic mass of fists and fury. Dr. Rivers moved with a speed and precision that belied his gentle demeanor. He weaved between attacks, delivering calculated blows to pressure points, disabling rather than maiming. He remembered his oath, the promise to do no harm, even as he fought to protect himself. One attacker pulled out a knife, the glint of steel reflecting the dim streetlights. The doctor's breath hitched for a moment. This was a new level of escalation. He couldn't afford to hold back any longer. He disarmed the attacker with a swift maneuver, the knife clattering on the pavement. He then used a series of strikes to disable the gang members, careful to avoid inflicting permanent damage, relying on pressure points and joint manipulations to subdue them. Within moments, the street was silent, save for the groans of the fallen thugs. Dr. Rivers stood there, breathing heavily, his knuckles bruised, his mind reeling. He was a doctor, a healer, not a fighter, but he had done what he had to do to survive. The adrenaline began to subside, replaced by a chilling realization. This wasn't over. This was just the beginning. The Phoenix Syndicate wouldn't let this go. He had just declared war, whether he wanted to or not. The aftermath was a mix of relief and trepidation. The subdued gang members, bruised and battered, were left to limp away, carrying not just their physical wounds, but also a profound blow to their pride. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood about what had transpired. The Black Doctor, who had single-handedly taken down a squad of the Phoenix Syndicate. The news was met with disbelief, then awe, and finally, a burgeoning sense of hope. People whispered about Dr. Rivers' hidden strength, his quiet courage in the face of overwhelming odds. Some saw him as a guardian angel, others as a symbol of defiance against the oppressive gang. The next morning, the clinic was busier than ever. People came not just for medical attention, but also to offer their support, their gratitude. Some brought food, others offered to help with repairs, and a few, the braver ones, even volunteered to stand guard outside the clinic. Dr. Rivers was overwhelmed by the outpouring of solidarity. He realized he wasn't alone in this fight. The community, tired of living in fear, was ready to stand up against the Phoenix Syndicate. But the gang's response was swift and brutal. That night, the clinic was vandalized, its windows smashed, its walls defaced with hateful graffiti. A clear message: resistance would not be tolerated. Dr. Rivers stood amidst the wreckage, his heart heavy but his resolve unbroken. He knew he had a choice to make. He could succumb to fear, pack up his belongings and leave the community to its fate. Or he could embrace his past, his skills, and stand with the people who needed him most. He looked at the faces of those who had gathered to help clean up the mess, their eyes filled with determination. He knew what he had to do. He would not abandon them. He would fight for them, not with violence as a first resort, but with unwavering commitment to healing, to hope, and to the belief that even in the darkest of times, light can prevail. Dr. Rivers, the combat medic turned compassionate doctor, stood ready to face whatever came next, not just as a healer, but as a protector, a symbol of resilience in a city desperately in need of a hero. The war had come to his doorstep, and he would meet it head-on, armed with his skills, his compassion, and the unwavering support of the community he had sworn to serve. The battle for the heart of the city had just begun.